You've explained this to me before, and it made a lot of sense, and I forgot it entirely. So chi is based off of, in some meaningful way, hash, which is a maybe derivative of a way of compute or energy or cost to mine. Can you re-explain all of this to me?
So basically, what you're doing is if you look at miners, their cost of producing a hash is largely dominated by energy. So if we issue a token that's proportional to hash, we're issuing a token that's proportional to energy, is basically the very simple statement. In the system, what you're trying to do is you're trying to deconvolve all the factors and just get as pure of a representation as energy as possible. So in some ways, you might have heard some people talk about Bitcoin as being energy money. But the reason I say it's not energy money is because the amount of Bitcoin in circulation does not represent the total amount of energy that's gone into Bitcoin. There's many factors that go into pricing Bitcoin. Stock to flow, are we near halving? Are we far away from a halving? Utility, speculation, all of those things multiply together. They convolve to create Bitcoin's price, which is no longer a direct representation of the energy. What we're doing in our system is we're saying a hash is the closest objective reference to energy that we can get. And we even try to deconvolve efficiency of the GPUs. Now, that's an open loop process for us in that we're just projecting efficiency given historical data. But we're basically saying we're very much trying to tokenize the energy portion of that equation independent of all the other factors, independent of utility, speculation, anything. So chi has perfectly elastic quantity of supply, meaning if more demand happens for chi, the expectation is that the rational actors in the markets will end up creating more chi, such that supply and demand for that are met, and the price is always the production cost. But that also then means it has a perfectly inelastic price. Price is always meant to be that energy price, so then its supply has to be perfectly elastic. Different in that way than Bitcoin. Basically, we're really trying to use that mining as an oracle or an objective reference to figure out that energy input.
Yeah, Bitcoin's price is not particularly inelastic, and its supply certainly doesn't shrink very often unless someone sends it to the wrong address. And even then, it's not really shrinking. It's like circulating and shrinking. Here, I think I understand that chi, if, for example, like the price of energy increases, then you would assume that chi supply would decrease. There'd be some mechanism through which it would decrease, so the price would increase.
No. So interestingly, if the price of energy were to go up, the market value of chi would also technically go up if
Right.
we were using like a third reference. So if it was like in dollars, and this always gets confusing, but we'll try here. The chi is that representation of the energy required to produce a hash. So if the energy required to produce goes up in dollar terms, chi would also go up in dollar terms because of how the fact that the cost of producing a chi has now gone up. The referential price point has moved, so to speak, in dollar terms. So the supply will then adjust accordingly until those converge to equilibrium.
Now, see, this was my question. So I was assuming if the price of energy goes up, some chi would be burned or taken out of the supply to force the price to go up or to increase the price.
That could be one of the outcomes. The number of chi goes down while the price goes up.
Is that because it can be redeemed for Quai? So it's one mechanism of price go up or like reduced supply is redeeming chi for Quai. We can talk about that in a second. What is the other mechanism? It seemed like you were hinting that there might be a more organic or natural mechanism for the price going up.
There's two mechanisms in the system. So with chi, the first mechanism is that it's issued proportional to hash. So what that does is it makes the value of the price of chi in the market, it wants to approach the cost of production from that first mechanism. So if I'm a miner and I can produce more cheaply than the price, I'll produce it, thus increasing supply until the market price converges to my production cost.
And if you can't, you wouldn't, because why would you run a negative?
At some point, you could just sit there and be like, I don't need to mine any more chi because chi isn't profitable mine. We're in equilibrium. There's the right amount of supply. So at that point, I'll just mine Quai instead of chi.
Choose what they're mining at any given time?
Yes.
Okay, this makes more sense. The increase of the rate of supply is going to be entirely dependent upon the cost to mine it, which is why chi acts as a flat coin, because it will only be mined when it's profitable or like makes sense to do so, given rational actors in the system.
That's mechanism one. Now, mechanism two is if there's too much chi in the world and the market price is below the cost of production, we need to have a mechanism to bring that back up. The second mechanism is there is a protocol offered exchange rate, and it's determined by a controller. And the goal of the controller is to adjust the rate to make the market neutral to the offered rate. So if the market is neutral to the rate offered, it means that the rate that they're offering in the protocol is equivalent to the external market rate. Anybody can burn Chi and mint Quai, or burn Quai and mint Chi via that mechanism, which allows the supply of Chi to more dynamically expand and contract
without affecting the price directly. So like it's not a buy sell mechanism, it's a mint burn mechanism. So you could just burn Chi for its market value in Quai, or burn Quai for its market value in Chi. This is the market value, not the referential value.
Correct.
Would it be liquidity constraints would be the reason to do this?
Yeah, there's two reasons. One is if you have Chi, your growth is constrained by the mining rate or the emissions rate. But if I allow you to convert Quai to Chi, I can grow the supply of Chi more dynamically. Additionally, I can shrink the supply of Chi. So if I'm only ever printing Chi, but there's, say, like a shock to demand in Chi, there's no way to pull that Chi out of market without the conversion mechanism. So the conversion mechanism is also the way that the supply of Chi shrinks.